It's time for Ball Talk with Sanford and Johnny. From what's happening on the blue at Boise State to the Mountain West and beyond. The biggest storylines, the best guests, and most outlandish opinions from two dudes who eat, sleep, and breathe college football. Today's broadcast is coming from the Cutwater Spirits Canned Cocktail Studios. Check out one of their more than 30 flavors of pre-mixed premium cocktails at your local gas station or grocery store. Cutwater Canned Cocktails is perfect for your next game day tailgate party. Ball Talk with Sanford and Johnny, featuring former Boise State quarterback and longtime coach Mike Sanford and KTIK 95.3 FM The Ticket's Johnny Mallory on Bronco Nation News.
There he is. Here we go. Ball Talk Spring Edition, Episode 2 with Sanford and Johnny. Make sure my levels are going here well, Coach, and a March Madness edition, if you will, of Ball Talk. We got games going on as we speak, Coach. We got Boise State resuming spring camp this week. We have Pro Day on Tuesday. You just got back from an extreme vacation, the busiest media member in Denver sports right now, Mike Sanford. I love it, man. Your bracket. I actually heard, real quick, I heard you had Yale beating Auburn. Sometimes it pays to be the fullbacks coach of a school when you're like 23 years old.
Yeah, and if you can believe this, I picked Yale, of course. I did pick them to lose tonight, just in full candor. I believe in the Aztecs. I went really heavy on the Mountain West in my bracket, so that's where we went a little bit downhill pretty quickly.
Do you usually pick the places you've worked for?
If I know the coaches, I love Leon Rice and I love Tad Boyle. Like, those are two of my favorite basketball guys that I've had a chance to interact with over the last 15 years of being in ball. But so I picked the winner of Boise State or Colorado to beat Florida, and it was great. I didn't have to say exactly who's going to win that game in my bracket because of when I selected it. I also picked Duquesne. I picked Yale.
Yeah,
I picked Colorado to beat Florida. I had my upset game was on point. How's your bracket doing, Johnny? Talk to me about.
Not too hot. I've had a rough weekend, man.
You had a nice. Hey, how was your good trip to Circa? You liked it?
Yeah, dude. I know you just got back from Arizona for spring training baseball, and I did that last year, and that might be the best February, March vacation for a sports fan. Close second would be Las Vegas, not during the NCAA tournament, during conference championship week. You have more games going on and there's less pressure of the big dance. There's less people. So we had a blast, man. Yeah, but my bracket, not doing good, Coach. But some of these games, I have San Diego State actually losing to Auburn. I didn't have the Yale pick up. That game's going to start here pretty quick, but we're going to talk football. That's the point of the show today, and glad everybody is with us and get everybody ready for spring camp. They had spring break. The entire team was off last week, coaches. You've been through so many times this spring break. Just the way spring break works now, where you actually have spring break in the middle of spring camp. It seems to me that coaches do a pretty good job managing around it, though.
I love the way that Boise State scheduled this spring football, and as it relates to, just a mini camp, like almost an NFL style mini camp right before spring break to get, 1, 2, and 3 days of install. Literally, your install's broken up day 1, day 2, day 3. And I don't know exactly what Boise State's going to do on either side of the ball when they get back to practice. It seems like Tuesday will be the first time back on the grass or on the blue or wherever it ends up being. But I love the fact that you'll have a chance to use tomorrow, which is going to be Monday, to flush out all the bad decisions that were made during spring break. And if you think that those bad decisions are made only by the players, you're wrong. Because some of the coaches need to flush out some of their bad decision-making on spring break. So you usually do that in the form of a conditioning run or a test, and you dangle that conditioning test before spring break, and you get a pretty quick gut check to see who went to Panama City Beach. Hey, maybe who stayed in Boise to train, or who went and visited just hometown of Utah and just spent some good time with the family, got some throwing sessions in. So you get to see, based off of what is coming out of said athlete's body, what they did over spring break. And it's a whole lot of fun. It's almost an annual tradition to see what shape different guys are when they come back from spring ball. And then
we want to talk some pro day too on Tuesday. Boise State's had some very significant pro days. This one I probably wouldn't label with that type of significance, but there are some players that we want to see, in particular George Helani, and we'll get to that later on here in Ball Talk, Coach. But I wanted to ask you, what's pro day like at Notre Dame?
It seems like every single team is there, and not just, it's funny. You see, the university football accounts from all these schools say all 32 teams are here. Well, of course they are. There's a scout from every team goes to just about every pro day because there are about 16 scouts per team. But when you have either a head coach, a general manager, a position coach or coordinator, that's what Notre Dame felt like, is that there was a head coach, a GM, a position coach for your best, prospect from every single team. And so, it was interesting to me. It dawned on me that Oregon, the Ducks, did a very early pro day. It was actually the weekend that free agency opened up in the NFL. And that's a really busy weekend for head coaches and general managers back at the ranch, if you will. And Oregon didn't have, I think there was not one general manager in the presence of Oregon's pro day. And there was only one head coach that was present. It was Matt Eberflus, who I think's he's playing his poker hand really close to his vest and going to every single one of the top 5 or 6 quarterbacks in this draft class so as not to tip his hand at all.
Now get your comments in. We'll get to a mailbag portion throughout the program of the show. Shout out to our boy Roy. He's ready. He's fired up, Coach, to get a Ball Talk Spring Edition going. How much does an OC or a high-level coach, how much are they involved in pro day? I would imagine when you were at Notre Dame and you're saying every coach, every GM, most high-level coordinators are there too. What type of questions will the coaches of the NFL and the scouts, what do they have for George Helani's OC, or in your case, CJ Prosice's OC, which was, of course, you? What type of stuff are they going to ask the coaches?
Well, what I found is that a lot of those questions are asked by the scouts throughout the course of the year. So the scouts come to training camp practices, they come to regular season practices. They set up shop and watch film a lot of times right next to your office. And so you end up, spending some time with guys that you've either gotten to know, or you just pop your head in and answer questions that are asked about those athletes. The pro day tour for all of the personnel that's traveling from school to school to school, it's a rat race. So they get in, they get out, and the actual coaching staff from the university that's hosting the pro day has very little involvement. Typically the strength coach, actually. I remember Jeff Pittman, at Boise State, very involved, very active in setting up all the different, the height, weight measurements, and the NFL will certify everything. The different people that travel, scouts and general managers or assistant GMs. But really the coaches are there just to support their athletes. They're there to give, some encouragement, a little, hey, you're doing well, dap them up after something maybe. But for the most part, you're actually separated from the NFL personnel. Okay. And the workout itself is run exclusively by different coaches or different scouts from all over the NFL. And so college coaches really just are spectators, and that's it. You might get a couple questions off the side. There's been a couple times, like for example, at Notre Dame, when I had Deshaun Kaiser, you might have, a couple scouts ask if they grab a beer with you afterwards, stuff like that, and kind of talk. But for the most part, you're not doing a whole lot except for just cheering on your guys.
I want to get some comments going too on this, because we are wrapping up March Madness, the NCAA tournament. We were talking about our brackets. Coach picked Yale to beat Auburn in his bracket because he coached there. Was it 2 years or just 1 year up there?
I was just there for one season, 2009. And it's so cool, Johnny, because we're watching the game. My family's going nuts. My daughter was born at Yale New Haven Hospital
Awesome.
And she's 14 years old. And she was born in the same wing of Yale New Haven Hospital that George W. Bush was born.
Wow.
When his father, George Sr., was in law school at Yale. But anyway, so it was awesome. We're watching the game, and I point out to my wife, I said, that's the same basketball head coach that was there when I was coaching there. It feels like now 40 years ago, even though it really was, I think it was 15 years ago. So James Jones has been the head coach there for,
He's still there. That's great.
25 seasons, and they've had an awesome squad the last couple of years. And it's so weird. I look back and I'm like, man, when I was coaching there, he was like the young, cool cat walking around. Now he looks like he'd be a grandpa.
He's probably the longest tenured coach in the Ivy League for hoops now. I'm trying to think. I mean, if they have had some old guys walking around there, but yeah, that's a hell of a run. That's a big win for Yale hoops, coach. Congratulations.
Yeah.
Part of the Bulldog family for you. Is this the best weekend for a sports fan in the calendar year? That's where I want people to comment on. And I'm talking the March Madness weekend, like opening Thursday morning, coach, to Sunday night. I mean, you have 16 games Thursday, 16 games Friday, 8 on Saturday, and 8 on Sunday. And they're still going on. And now the play-in games are more exciting than they've ever been, too. So you actually get games on Tuesday and Wednesday. This was always the number one sports weekend for me. I remember always calling in sick from school, pulling a Ferris Bueller on the Thursday and Friday. So I never had to go to school when the tournaments were going on back in the day. And I'll tell you this, though. Labor Day for college football is gaining on it. And I want to get your opinion too, because Labor Day is terrific for college football now. The NFL stays away from it. College football just owns it.
That Monday night game, the prime time early season. What was it, Florida State, LSU earlier this year?
Yes, and it's always the Chick-fil-A kickoff, some badass SEC team, and you get the games on Thursday night. So for you, sports, you just got back from a big baseball weekend. You're a huge baseball fan too. What's the best sports weekend of the year? Now that you're a media member too, you get to experience all this, man.
The best sports weekend of the year, it's actually not even the weekend. I think it's the Thursday, Friday of March Madness. And particularly if you can get work off. Because like we were in Scottsdale, it was our kids' spring break. We went down and we in between going to five different spring training games, we actually were able to, skip off to a couple sports pubs and in downtown Scottsdale and pick up some of these games and just hearing the buzz that's at all of these places in a place like Scottsdale where there's, sports bars left and right. It's incredible.
Dude.
But I think that's for a sports fan. It's that Thursday and Friday. That's like Christmas for a sports fan. Now for me, just me personally.
Yep.
I think of the traditional, we'll talk pre-BCS, January 1, man. January 1. And then now I think I look at it more as the CFP Final Four. And now that's going to change again, and we're going to see how it morphs with this CFP 12, right? We're going to see exactly how that lines up with the calendar and the schedule. I love that those days, pretty much everybody universally is off of work. It makes for just an awesome environment. And even the what do they call it? CFP, New Year's 6 bowl games that precede kind of the two CFP Final Four games. That's an unbelievable day of football.
So for you, it's college football kind of New Year's Day when you got all those big teams playing each other and okay, yeah, that's a good weekend too, man.
Especially when you've coached in it,
Okay.
And when you coach or play in one, that's when it's like, this is different. Like this is a lot different because you just know that everybody's watching you. I mean, there's no interruption. It's also another time where the NFL and college football don't try to go head to head on that particular day.
Yeah.
It's just so much fun.
And now you're getting these big games in the non-con. Hopefully that even continues with the new landscape of college football and what they're going to do on Labor Day. Yeah, dude. I love it. What's that hat? The Cactus League?
So my wife decked me out. So yeah, Cactus League, which is the Arizona version of spring training. And then you got the Grapefruit League over in Florida. I definitely prefer the Cactus League because I'm a diehard San Francisco Giants fan. Plus, I got to go get the scouting report on a 104 loss Colorado Rockies team that actually sneakily looks kind of good. Take the over on their win total on the season. They're healthy, and they were never healthy last year. And my son, who's the diehard Packers fan, who's buddies with Jordan Love, he now all of a sudden is a Brewers fan because we went to the Brewers spring training site, and it is like everybody's from Wisconsin, everybody's a Packers, Brewers, Bucks fan, and eating Sheboygan dogs, some cheese curds out of a Brewers.
So nice.
I mean, it was phenomenal. Everything about it was great. So this shirt is wifey got it for me. It's Baseballism. And this is their Cactus League version of gear. So, yeah.
Baseballism makes really fresh stuff. Do you remember the video game Ken Griffey Jr. Baseball? Of course. Yeah, I have a hat that just has the logo of the 8-bit.
All pixelated.
Ken Griffey Jr. Good. Swinging. I have it on a
hat.
Love that.
I saw it there. I actually saw that there this weekend. I'm glad I didn't get it for you.
Yeah, you saw that one? Yeah, I actually bought that in San Francisco at a Giants game I went to.
Right across Oracle Park.
That's where I went to. Let's get back to Boise State football. Spring ball resumes on Tuesday here in Ball Talk. And I want to ask Coach Sanford about the movement of a depth chart during the spring. How much moving up, maybe how much moving down. Let's talk about that in 90 seconds.
All Bronco Nation news broadcasts come from the Cutwater Spirits Canned Cocktail Studios. Check out one of their more than 30 flavors of premix premium cocktails at your local gas station or grocery store. Cutwater Spirits, perfect for your next game day tailgate party. Our title sponsor is rowpaint.com. For all your commercial, industrial, residential painting needs, check out rowpaint.com. Don't forget about their concrete coatings. Transform that ugly concrete slab on your back patio in your garage in just one day. Contact rowpaint.com for a free estimate today. The official paint and coatings company of Boise State Athletics, and our title sponsor at Bronco Nation News is rowpaint.com. Idaho Central Credit Union's been helping members achieve financial success for more than 80 years. There's an ICCU branch on almost every corner, but the closest is in your pocket with free eBranch mobile and online banking. See why more than 500,000 members love ICCU and join 1 in 4 Idahoans by making the switch today at ICCU.com. Since 1984, Ridley's Family Markets has prided itself on being a hometown food and drug store that employed value members of the local community. Ridley's Family Markets has 13 locations in the state of Idaho and many more in the surrounding states. Download the new Ridley's app to your smartphone, get savings up to 40% off at the checkout line, and find a location near you at shopridleys.com. Former Bronco Matt Bauscher is once again the number 1 ranked realtor in the Treasure Valley. No home is too big or too small for Matt and his team. Let them fulfill all your real estate needs at BauscherRealEstate.com.
Accent man, ball. There it is. Ball talk. Okay. Depth chart moving upwards, downwards in spring ball. Is there enough time to make significant depth chart work on spring ball? I mean, how do coaches go through this? I mean, if you're a guy trying to climb up the depth chart, why wouldn't spring be a good time to do it?
I think spring ball can really help you. It can help your case to being in position to be then earning a starting job come fall camp and leading into game week, opening week of the season. I think a lot of times it's, line play, because I think that the most important developmental time for individual coming off their freshman year is going to be that period of time from really January, February into March. That's where you just go completely in on the weight room, all the gains that you're able to put together, and then you then have the ability to apply some of those physical gains that you may have made. So I look at it really as a really important period of time for those guys that just finished their true freshman year.
Okay.
I know the calendar shifted with the all the portal entries, and now you have people that are plugging holes with portal guys here and there, and maybe not looking to maybe a developing freshman year, not as much. But I do think that if you come in, say in a traditional time period, and you come in June going into your freshman year, June through December, you're drinking through a fire hose. You don't know the scheme. A lot of times, you end up being on scout teams. So you're not even running, the Boise State offense. If you're a quarterback, you're running, Colorado State's offense one week and then Nevada's the next week. And so I think that this is your first time to have that opportunity to, to show what you can do in the systems that you're going to be playing in, not other people's systems that are just drawn on a scout card. I look back at my own experience and frankly, I dropped the ball. My first spring ball, I was out. I was out the entire spring ball. And I go back to, you make some decisions in your life. We talked about bad decisions. Well, I went up to Whistler Blackcomb for the all college ski trip during December break or January break, right before we returned back to school. And about a month later, I've been sick for about 3-4 weeks. I just kept going, got the old mononucleosis. Mononucleosis. So
yeah, that'll put you out.
Yeah. So I ended up missing spring ball because I had an enlarged spleen. And it was a big mistake. It was for me. It was
who was in the quarterback room then at BSU?
So that would have been Bart Hendricks just finished up. So then the quarterback room just at that time was Ryan Dinwiddie, BJ Rohde, myself, Josh Brous, and Sean Steichen was a quarterback.
Okay. Is that related to Shane Steichen?
Yeah, brother of Shane Steichen. Shane Steichen's brother. Small world here. I don't want to get too off track here, but so Sean ended up being my roommate in college for 4 years. He was in my wedding, stood in my wedding, and then my dad got the head coaching job at UNLV, which ended up being my first GA job. And the quarterback we ended up playing was on our team was Shane Steichen. He was our guy.
Wow.
And so I went from being the roommate of one and now Shane Steichen's the head football coach of the Indianapolis Colts. So he ended up after his playing career, followed my dad to Louisville and was my dad's graduate assistant at University of Louisville.
So it can hurt you maybe more than it can help you on spring. The best ability is availability.
No doubt. Yeah. And you've heard me say that on air a ton, but I think it can really help you in particularly in the line play. Because I think that the offensive lines are always just kind of working and gelling. If there's, a vacancy or two, you might see some movement. Maybe a guy that was the starter at right guard starts getting worked at center, and there's a new spot available at right guard. And, maybe this right tackle is kind of a swing guy. He can be inside, outside. So if you start showing some athleticism and also showing that you can gel with the group that is trending towards being the starting lineup, I think that most offense coordinators, offensive line coaches would want to come out of spring ball with some more definition of what they believe their starting 5 offensive line will be, because you don't want to have to make those decisions in the fall. It's too late.
They sent out the sports information department sent out a text to the media, and it's been showed. We've tweeted all this. It's out there, but the list of the injury report for spring and the players that won't be able to go. There's like 5 starters on that list. Some pretty big names. And I know people need to get cleaned up. If you have surgery, I know how it goes. And it's not the biggest thing in the world, but how big a little, what type of thing is it in the world that, there's 15, 20 players that you hope to see a lot on the blue-ish that won't be participating in spring, and in several cases, key starters. How do coaches handle that? What do your experiences tell you the best way to handle this is?
The way that I see it is a lot of those decisions were probably made during the fall to prolong their availability for the fall, was to harness up a shoulder. A lot of times, probably the number one operated injury in college football is your labrum. And if you don't know this, I think it's like 70% of the population of just normal adults have some form of a torn labrum. I actually don't even have a labrum currently on my left shoulder, and I can just pop my shoulder in and out. I don't want to gross out our audience, but
sweet.
A lot of times, you can play the rest of the season oftentimes, with a torn labrum. But you end up having to harness. That's why you always see those shoulder harnesses popping out of the jersey right here. Safeties, linebackers, D linemen, O linemen, a lot of the grabbing, diving type of positional players, they play through the season fully knowing that the decision is made to prolong that season, but then you're going to get that cleanup of the labrum. You're going to have, 1, 2, 3, or 4 anchors put into that labrum, and you're going to miss spring ball. The other one too is meniscus, the knee, the meniscus. And currently I have both. I have a lack of a meniscus on my left knee. I don't have any on the inside part of my leg. But a lot of times you can play through that. It's more nagging. You end up, having a trim down at the end of the season. And typically it's about 3 to 6 months before you're fully back to health, both with the labrum and also a meniscus. So that's a lot of times that's what you're looking at. So I wouldn't get too concerned. It means that there are probably a good amount of players that just laid it on the line for the fall in order to, finish out the season, knowing that they were going to get surgeries postseason.
The practice, like you said, they were off all last week, and I was at the practice, which will be like 2 weeks ago. Like, it feels like it was 2 months ago, right? I didn't see anything that really stood out all that much. Seemed like everybody was fired up. They were going at the speed the coaches wanted them to, running to every single station. Obviously, the coaches too. Everybody was fired up. Before I get into some analysis, though, I don't even notice the stupid pads on the top of the helmets anymore. 3 years ago, Coach, I'd go to practice and I couldn't get them out of my mind. Why do they wear those stupid helmet caps and this? Oh my gosh. Now I don't even notice it. It's crazy. Those things are obviously here to stay. I wonder, do you think they're ever going to make them? I mean, are you going to put those on during a game at some point?
I could see that happening.
Wow.
If they find a way to make them a little shinier, a little bit,
players don't hate them. Players hate them. They say they don't look cool. Like, they look stupid, man. I won't wear this, but they don't even hit in practice anyway, which is hilarious. But it did stick out to me.
I think it's a good move. Ironically, I don't even know if I ever coached at a school that wore them. I don't know if
Colorado didn't.
I don't. They did when Coach Prime got there. We didn't wear them. I don't believe in 2022. And then Utah State, we didn't wear them. Minnesota, we didn't wear them. So I've never been around them. So it's still weird to me. But it's obviously a really good move for just most of the issues that are related to CTE have more to do with just that constant pounding of the day in, day out, particularly in the line play. You're coming off the ball and you're going vinyl or whatever the material of helmet is these days. Some aeronautic, but you're just banging against each other, time and time again. So I'm all for anything that's going to prolong, athletes, livelihoods. And so I think it's a good move.
As a coach, was there anything that, maybe, if you could be on the competition committee or talk to someone who is a part of the competition committee for major college football, was there a rule or something with college football that maybe you've had a soapbox and you've been standing on for a decade saying college football should do this, that, or the other? Have we talked about that yet on an episode of Ball Talk?
We've never talked about that. I will say this. I think that one of the biggest travesties along the lines of prolonging the longevity and livelihood of athletes. I think that one of the issues I've had a big problem with is inconsistencies from school to school with the concussion protocol. I think that should be completely taken over by the NCAA. They should have the data of the baseline testing. And then I think, the NCAA is doing nothing right now except for printing money with the NCAA tournament. They're not regulating recruiting. They're not regulating who's cheating, who's not. Why not actually look out for the people that you're profiting off of, and look out for them and have some consistency? And where I found the problem, and I won't talk about the school or a name of an athlete, is I was a part of a culture at a certain school where everybody kind of gave the wink, wink. I had a concussion. Let's not talk about it. Don't ask, don't tell. Well, it became an issue for me because I'm a play caller. And I didn't realize that somebody who's very significant had an issue related to a concussion. And I didn't know that.
Tell you.
They didn't say a word because that was part of the culture. It was embedded in the culture. And I was up in the box, so I didn't have the ability to have those types of, where you look a guy in the eye and you can see that far away look. And it dawned on me the next day after a game that, I was calling a game offensively with a guy that just flat out should never have been out there. And frankly, was just a skeleton of who he is as a person the day after.
Let me guess. He probably told you the next day, Coach, I didn't remember one thing.
There you go.
Did he? Yeah, I've had that with quarterbacks too, and they said they were concussed, and they said, I swear to you, I don't remember one play of that game. I remember running out of the tunnel. I remember a couple things, but I don't remember that score. I don't remember. It's weird when you talk to dudes who were concussed back in the day and they stayed in. Troy Aikman had that story in the NFC Championship game. I think it would have been 93. He got concussed. Kozar came in, and he was saying, I don't remember a single play. And yeah, that's scary. Your guy, whoever you had said that to you too, didn't remember anything, huh?
There you go. Yeah. And it's like as a competitor, you're upset, because you very easily could have gone to the next player in the depth chart. And you're a play caller, but more importantly than that, you think about if you've been doing that for 3, 4, 5 years as a starter in college football, you just shorten your lifespan, or you just shorten
you can't give the gig up though, Coach. You can't give the gig up. I mean, you're gonna get, you got Deshaun Kaiser, but behind him you got Ian Book, who's just waiting. In whoever case situation, you got Tavita Pritchard. Right behind him is this new young Andrew Luck, who can't wait to see the field for you guys at Stanford. Tavita, I'm sorry, man. I'm as smart as you are. You go out, something can happen. You can
But you know what? You only got one brain, dude. And
I know.
And you got between 50 and 70 years ahead of you.
You told that to quarterbacks, like, dude, come on.
No, because you don't want it. That's the thing, is in the coaching world, you don't want to be the whistleblower. You don't want to be it is in the building. You can't even say the word concussion. You start calling it the C word. Do you think he has a C word? We laugh about it. We laugh about it, but it's not funny. And I don't think it's funny, because I'll say this. I knew Junior Seau very well. I knew Junior Seau when he was playing at USC. My dad was coaching there in 89, 90, right in that time period. And then fast forward to 1997, 1999, my dad gets hired at the Chargers, and Junior Seau is the San Diego Superchargers.
Well said.
And I watch him fly around. I mean, he practiced every single practice was like
seriously?
A man on fire.
Yeah.
I mean, he was the opposite of what you said modern day practices are.
I've been to NFL practices too. I mean, you don't see guys flying around.
But and why I don't think this is funny, then fast forward another 7-8 years after his career's done. Our family's on vacation down in Palm Springs. My grandparents lived down there, and we saw him at a restaurant. And I mean, from a talking to a human being, from somebody you've known since they were a 19-year-old, and then
you can tell
it was astounding. It was almost like my dad and I were both like, wow, this game, it changed that man.
Gosh.
And so, I don't want to, I think a lot of people, that he kind of, as a coach, you don't want to acknowledge this as an issue. It's a freaking major issue. It's a major issue. And it's not an issue with I think it's more the long-term players, like that Junior Seau story. There's been plenty of
20 years.
Yeah. There's plenty of coaches that I've worked with that were 7 to 12 year NFL vets. And you see a different version of a human being at that point in time at 45, 50 years old, and their recall, their ability to remember things. And the technology is getting better. Absolutely. But what needs to change is the culture surrounding that word, the C word. And you got to say that word, because if it's real, it's real, but it needs to be standardized. Because on the flip side of that, I think there are certain athletes that also don't want to practice. They might not be in the position where they're starting, and they don't want to be on scout team, but they're a scholarship athlete. And so anytime you say that word to a trainer, you're shut down. So it doesn't even matter, because you say, I think I have a concussion. You're out for a week, 2 weeks, or 3 weeks. So there needs to be a standard, and the NCAA needs to run it because they're not doing a dang thing other than just printing money after all these tournaments they put on.
Are you scared? I mean, for the future of football? Feels like it's, I mean, I know the technology as well. And like I was talking about the helmet pads, I mean, that is massive a massive preventative tool, I would think that is going to help. And I mean, you remember when you were a kid running around on those USC, what was that, Larry Smith coach?
Yep.
The head coach at USC. I mean, you remember the helmets, then those Rydell's with the poofy things in the middle, and guys like Junior Seau. I mean, that's how you're kind of taught too. You use that as a weapon. John Lynch over the middle. He was hitting you with his head first, and now you can't do that anymore. But are you somewhat satisfied with the direction it's going?
Yeah, I am. I just think that the NFL's done a much better job. Obviously, it's the health and safety. There's standardized protocol across the National Football League with concussions. That's not something that the Patriots are going to do a certain way. And I mean, there's NFL league doctors that are at every single game that are standardized, and they have their baseline data of what they're like pre-hit or before a season. Is that your guy right there?
I wouldn't say he's my guy.
Oh, wait, hold on. Okay.
If I'm on the internet,
I'm just going to lob this out there. I think that both of you had a chance to watch your Idaho Vandals in this year's NCAA tournament. Playing in a game? Not in a game. Playing at the game? You betcha. The Vandals marching band stepped in for the Yale Bulldogs because Yale was too busy saving the world and finding cures to every major disease known to mankind. Yeah. And lo and behold, guess who steps right in? The Idaho Vandals. So congratulations, ROT. Congratulations there, Johnny Ballgame. I am so excited for you guys, man, that you're in the dadgum NCAA tournament.
You're welcome, Yale. Came in there and gave you that lift you needed to have the biggest win in the history of your basketball program, beating Auburn in the first round like that. Couple of questions we want to get to here on Ball Talk. Sanford was not at the spring practice. I was there, so you don't really have anything to speak of one-on-one about Malachi's talent. I can tell you from what I saw at practice, there's going to be a fun quarterback competition, and it's going to be lively, Coach. And Maddox Madsen, the guy that you've compared on this show to Grant Hedrick, he's going to do everything he can, I think, to keep this gig. But obviously Malachi's got the pedigree and the talent, and it's going to be an interesting competition, certainly for me. But I'm starting to come alive to your Maddox Madsen Grant Hedrick comparison. I kind of see it a little bit there too. So that was interesting. What exact qualities were you seeing when you saw Mad Dog and you say, you know what, that reminds me of Hedrick?
I think I saw, toughness. Toughness is a huge component of the quarterback position. In fact, I think it's the number one trait of a quarterback is mental and physical toughness.
Just being a tough dude.
Just being a tough guy, but also a lot of toughness is mental. I mean, the majority of toughness is mental, being able to bounce back and, even for a guy like Mad Dog to be introduced to the fan base in a 2-quarterback system isn't always the greatest way to go in, but he just seemed like a guy that didn't matter how he got on the field, what the circumstances were. He was just going to go out and lay it on the line. I do think that, I don't want to put Maddox Madsen to Grant Hedrick because, frankly, those are very, very high expectations. Those would be massive shoes to fill. I mean, statistically, one of the greatest seasons, in the quarterback position in school history in a lot of different categories as a runner, completion percentage.
Good point.
Was just a really good player. So I'm not willing to say that. I do think that, Maddox Madsen's not 6'4", he's not 6'3", he's not 6'2". I'm not a height guy. I'm not a height whore at the quarterback.
You're not a quarterback. You weren't one of those coaches like I can't have you if you're not 6'1" at least.
No, and frankly, the reason I didn't like 6'4" quarterbacks is because I wasn't very good. And I could throw the ball 68 yards, and I'm 6'4".
You had a hose, didn't you?
A little bit. A little bit of a howitzer, slight.
Yeah. You had a hose, man.
But when you're long, think about it like the golf game. How many pro golfers? Because golfing and throwing a football or throwing a baseball, you're all a rotational athlete. You're a core-driven athlete that you have to use your core and your lower half and ground force production from the turf. You've got to be able to utilize all that in sync. And the longer that your levers are, the more in tuned everything has to be at all times to be an accurate passer, to create the consistency and velocity. So it's not always the easiest to be an accurate passer when you're 6'5" or taller. I think there are fewer and far between. And nowadays the game has turned into such a tight window RPO driven game that it's all about, short motions, get the ball out, and repeatable stroke. On the golf tournament, on the tour, how many golfers are taller than 6'3"?
Doesn't feel like a lot. Tiger,
he was 6'2" and a half. I met Tiger. He's 6'2", maybe. Like he's not
taller than you were taller than Tiger.
I was eating peanuts off the top of his head. I mean, and he was a big golfer. Dustin Johnson. He's a big dude. But you look at most of these guys like Sergio Garcia.
No, they're not big men. No, they're not big men.
You know why? Is because you don't have the length of lever to control on a consistent basis. And it's all about repeatable stroke. And the same thing holds true with the quarterback position. Now you do get to a point of diminishing returns where you're playing in front of massive human beings. You're playing behind them. Those guys are in front of you. And so if you're 5'9", the game becomes challenging. I saw it this year with Russell Wilson. In Denver, you can't play the drop back style of football with a guy that's shorter than 5'11". And Russell Wilson is shorter than 5'11". And so I think even with Mad Dog and his skill set, can he play drop back football? Yes. Is that going to be to the best of his strengths? Probably not. You want to move the pocket. You want to use quarterback-driven run game. You want to use out-breaking RPOs so that the throws aren't over the middle of the field in a traditional drop-back setting where you got to find, shimmy your way in the pocket. So there are challenges to being a shorter quarterback. But I think the benefits is being a guy that can consistently create the accuracy because your levers are shorter.
Speaking of accuracy, and by the way, your coverage for altitude, spot on. I'm loving your draft talk. Denver Broncos have a huge decision to make at the end of next month. That's got to be great radio for you and your team there in Denver, Coach Sanford. But the completion percentage, I saw a hit you did on altitude. I think Knicks led the nation 77 completion percentage last year. You led the nation with Grant Hedrick in 2014. He had about 71%, led the nation. What goes into it, like the crock pot of completion percentage, if you're going to have a massively high-level completion percentage like Knicks did, like your boy Hedrick did? I mean, is there less drop back, driving the ball down the field type of philosophies where it's a higher risk of throwing an incompletion? What do you put in that crock pot of completion percentage?
Without question, first off, Grant Hedrick led the nation in completion percentage. I did very little in terms of throwing the football that year. Grant,
together, you guys are high-fiving.
But what I say about particularly Grant and Bo Nix, those two guys in particular, I think that number one, you frankly have to have a great baseline of just accuracy, catchable footballs, knowing how to change different speeds on throws, different lofts on throws based off of the concept, off of defensive contour. I think that you have to have the ability as a passer to create those completions. But then I think where Grant and Bo Nix, I think, are very similar, and I know any Oregon fan would think I'm nuts in saying this, I think they're very similar because they were both very programmable quarterbacks. And so I've told you this so many times on the air that when you called a play with a guy like Grant Hedrick, you saw the coverage, you knew where the ball was going to go.
You did upstairs.
You knew where the ball was.
Knew Grant saw it too.
You're out there on your sticks playing Madden. You're like, oh yeah, here you go, it's right here. That's what you're doing. You're doing it the whole time. And I think Bo Nix was the exact same way. And Bo Nix right now he's getting drugged through the mud right now in the evaluation process. And everybody gets drugged through the mud. No matter who you are. Caleb Williams is getting drugged through the mud. As it relates to getting ready towards the draft. I think that Bo Nix, he did exactly what he was coached to do. And is that always the sexiest thing in the era of Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen? Those guys are unbelievable extenders of the play. And so like you're a play caller, and I know Sean Payton, from what I've heard, and I say, I think that he wants to be a guy where he calls a play, he sees the look, and boom, that's where the ball's delivered. But I think that Bo Nix is a guy that fits that mold, whereas Russell Wilson was more about the second play. And I think that Caleb Williams is the prime example of that. I don't know that Caleb Williams and Sean Payton and the Denver Broncos would be a great fit, because it almost seems like Caleb Williams at times, he'll turn down the easy first read completion to spin around and then go find somebody wide open down the field because of his athleticism behind the line of scrimmage. He's looking for the big play. And so I do think that that's a component of Bo Nix. Now, where I had my issue with Bo Nix is going into the combine, I felt like Bo Nix was doing exactly what Oregon was asking him to do. Therefore, he led the nation in the highest percentage of his attempted passes were underneath 10 air yards. Yeah. Well, I was going to the combine looking at, well, I wonder if Bo Nix is doing this solely because it's what the offense is asking him to do, or is it because the offense is shaped around what he can do? And at the combine, I saw that there was a deficiency to be able to make the big arm throws down the field consistently with accuracy. He has to create so much force because he just doesn't have a hose. He doesn't have a live arm. And it showed up to me at the combine. That's why I'm so glad I was at the combine in the first row, watching every single throw and seeing the difference between his arm strength and JJ McCarthy's arm strength, which was a massive difference.
It was. I'm not a McCarthy guy, man, but
I wasn't either. But then funny that you bring up JJ McCarthy. Everybody thinks that Michigan was choosing not to throw the football because he can't, or he doesn't have a strong arm. That dude has a howitzer, and I went to the combine and verified that. I didn't think that before the combine. And I was like watching him side by side with Bo Nix, and it was great because McCarthy, Nix were right next to each other. So you saw the same throw, tit for tat in a row. And JJ McCarthy was the massive winner of the day in terms of being able to make the throws that you need to in the NFL. Now, Michael Penix Jr., best thrower of the day. It wasn't even close. Best thrower.
You've always been a huge Penix guy since he torched you with the Buffs and you watching him on tape. I mean, you were saying this about Penix last August before he won 14 games to get to the national championship or whatever. You're still on board
Somebody's
with this.
Going to get the CJ Stroud of this year's draft class. I really believe that. I think that he is the CJ Stroud where, Bryce Young was the a unanimous number one overall pick. Nobody can even see anybody on his level. And then CJ Stroud goes in and leads the Texans, one of the worst teams in NFL, to have a chance to go win a playoff game and do that.
I can't wait. I mean, the draft's right around the corner. You guys in Denver. I mean, I know this isn't a Denver Bronco ball talk. I'll end it on this and get back to some Boise State stuff. But I mean, what do you think Denver's going to do? What are they saying in Denver on this? I mean, this has probably got to be, in addition to, Joker and what the Avs are doing in that town, a pretty hot topic.
Yeah, there's a lot of really fun stuff happening in the state of Colorado. It's awesome for me to be able to cover it on a weekly basis. And the Nuggets are the hottest team in the NBA again. The Avs right now are the hottest team in the NHL, maybe on their way to another Stanley Cup appearance. But the Broncos draft pick still is the number one topic. This is a football town. This is before the Nuggets and Avalanche were even a franchise. The Broncos were always the main attraction in town, and Super Bowls have been won in this town. So 3 of them to be exact. So I think it's a type of town where they're very interested in. I think this is going to happen from everything that I've been able to pick up from the Senior Bowl, the Combine, relationships I have with coaches in the NFL. There's going to be a run of 4 quarterbacks, and the top 4 quarterbacks will be off the board. And I think that actually JJ McCarthy might end up going before Drake May. I do think that Caleb Williams and Jaden Daniels are going to be 1 and 2 respectively. So the Broncos, there is a big drop off, at least with the national narrative. There's a big drop off with those 4 to, Michael Penix Jr. and Bo Nix. I think Bo Nix fits Sean Payton and his style of play very well. Short passing game, high percentage of completions, not necessarily run around, throw the ball down the field type of an offensive structure. I think that the Broncos either pick, the best receiver or tight end if it's Brock Bowers at 12, or they potentially trade back to be able to, beef up what they do have. They don't have a second round pick. I could see them taking Bo Nix in the second round and potentially a Rome Odunze, a Brock Bowers, one of the top level receivers with their first pick overall.
When you had running quarterbacks, go back to Grant Hedrick, 592 rushing yards in 2014 in your Fiesta Bowl winning season. What were your philosophies in the communication with your quarterback on, I mean, Bush said this last year with Talon, we want to use it. We don't want to abuse it. His ability to run the ball. I mean, did you? I don't remember you calling. I mean, you were a big read option guy, I guess, right? Grant had a lot of yards on them.
Yeah, we ran the quarterback power read a lot too.
What were the philosophies on taking off? Like when you have a mobile quarterback like that, what are the philosophies?
Well, I always said the quarterback that I coach, no matter what system I'm coaching in, it's got to be able to get 3 first downs a game with their legs. Bottom line, period.
You want 3 on foot. Okay.
You have to do it. You go back and even look at NFL stats, teams that win championships,
totally.
Quarterbacks get 3 first downs a game with their legs. Think about Patrick Mahomes. Is he a running quarterback? No. Is he would he run at the combine at 4.89 or something? I mean, he's not a fast guy, but it's about knowing when. It's the instincts of knowing when to take off on a called pass, knowing when to pull the ball on a called run. And if you do so decisively, because if you do it as a runner and you're indecisive whatsoever, that's where injury comes up. That's where the unnecessary hits come up. But yeah, you gotta be able to go in like a shot out of a cannon, get to the sticks, get what you can, get out of bounds or get down. And I don't love the slide because a lot of times the slide ends up reducing your yardage because it's where you start the slide from. And so you think you have a first down and you end up a yard short.
Yeah.
I don't believe in the slide. I believe in the knife. Which is a forward kind of downward knifing type of dive head first before you get into that, that pile. You get more yards that way than the slide. And the other thing about the slide, a lot of people benefit off that now everybody's protected on the slide. You get the 15 yards. You also leave yourself vulnerable for concussion. So, I think it's. I think you know very decisive.
Do you know a lot? Can you tell a lot on pre-snap that? Okay, hey, Grant Hedrick's going to have an opening to run on this if he wants it. Can you ever tell defensively, or they just kind of pop up when they do?
Yeah, I think if it's a called pass, right, and it's say it's 3rd and medium, 3rd and extra, 3rd and long, so 3rd and 6 to 3rd and 13, and you see like a 3-man rush, a 4-man rush, and they're playing 2-man. So cover 2-man is 2 high safeties playing over the top, and instead of playing zone underneath, you're playing trail technique man coverage, which means you actually let the receiver beat you over the top initially, and then you latch on with your back turned to said receiver, not just the corners. We're talking about even the linebackers on tight ends, even the inside linebacker, on your running back.
Is that the most common defense you're going to get on 3rd and 6 to 3rd and 9?
If you are a very dangerous throwing football team, you're going to typically get some version of that.
Okay.
And a lot of times it dares your quarterback to take off and run because that's typically it takes away your check down because now you have the linebackers playing man coverage on your running back instead of split, 2 backers that are splitting to cover zones at 8 to 12 yards. Now that check downs, it's matched or covered. So I always say if they cover all of them, they can't cover you. And I'm talking about the quarterback. Take off and go get it. And so that would be a situation where you see a 2-man and you have 4 verticals or you have 4 out plus maybe even the running backs on a free release. You're like, hey, there's nobody for you. Step up in that pocket. You feel the parting of the Red Seas. Go get it.
Does Gerald know what he's talking about? Boise State's passing game should be as good or better than the rushing game because the rushing game is so good. It's going to elevate the passing game. I don't think football works like that in many cases. I know a lot of teams that can run the hell out of the ball and they can't pass worth shit.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that that it will be better than the running game, because let's not forget the best player in great group of 5 football is coming back to play at Boise State. And last time I checked, you were at practice, right? And that's why I want to do the show with you. What was Ashton Jeanty? Was he just hanging out on the side, looking cool, just nursing an injury, or was he out there getting it ready for a big year in 2024?
He literally led the hype circle, and that's a big thing in Boise State's culture. Before every practice, they have their hype circle, and it's not just, hey, can I do it today? I don't know the process, but I think there was a and he reason.
Was getting reps.
I think there was a reason Ashton Jeanty led the first hype circle.
Yeah,
and so when Ashton Jeanty is saying, hey, strap it up, I don't care if it's spring ball, we're going at it. The season starts today. Let's go. Ride with me. And like, I had chills, and I was standing on the sidelines with a media pass. I'm like, damn, I'd play for this guy too. So answer the question on Ashton Jeanty. Reminds me of Ricky Williams physically with his build. I've said that a bunch, just with the way he's built, tree trunk thighs, all thighs and ass, just a physical specimen. Alexander Tubner was joking and saying we don't have enough plates for him in the weight room anymore. Apparently Ashton Jeanty is every bit the running back in the weight room that he is on the blue. And you've probably seen weight room.
Is that surprising that working your tail off in the weight room and being a great teammate, it correlates to on-field success?
You love hearing that, huh?
It's the best. It's the absolute best. And that's why, to this question that Gerald asked a minute or two ago, I do think that the passing game, it will be elevated because everybody's going to know game on the line. What are you going to do? You got to hand the ball to the best guy on your team. Frankly, the best guy in group of 5, maybe the best running back in college football, maybe the best player in college football. So then what are you going to do defensively? Are you going to add another element to the box? Are you going to play with, more aggressive fits in the run game? Are you going to get away from being a 2-shell structure defense and playing quarters, and all of a sudden you become a cover 3 team and you have to drop an extra safety down in the box? Well, if that's the case, then you got to make them pay down the field. That's where I do think that this year in particular, with the offensive line that I think is going to be an absolute strength of this team, and obviously, the best running back, I'll say in college football, and I won't be bashful about it. I do think that the tight end aspect's got to get going. It's got to be a part of the focal point of what you're doing offensively. And I think part of that is also, might see a portal addition, in June, in the tight end room. Cause it doesn't seem like there's a wealth of bodies at the tight end position.
No, and they've been hurt too. I think 2 tight ends are on the spring injury list too. So you don't get them during spring. Yeah. We'll see what happens.
Is it Matt Lautner?
Yeah. Louder.
Matt Louder. I think he's going to be a tremendous tight end. He's going to have a great season. He did a lot of really good things last season. And I don't know exactly what they have in the building. I don't have eyes on those guys. But that's a position that I think could really get paid in the play action game, in the vertical game, with how much people are going to have to commit to the ground game of stopping Boise State.
Maybe it was Ajayi. Maybe there's a guy. I'm trying to think of the most explosive player that Mike Sanford ever coached, the most game planned against player that the Sandman ever had, knowing that, okay, I have this receiver. He's a first rounder. Maybe he's going to get drafted by the Houston Texans. His name is Will Fuller. You know where I'm going with this. Yep. But hey, they're going to have 2-man just about all game on you. You're not going to see one single high safety ever, because then you're going to know you got a 9 route coming with the fastest receiver in the country. So they're going to bracket him, and there's going to be a guy back there. But still, Will Fuller is going to come to you at the end of the game and say, Coach, I don't give a rip if I was bracketed. I'll run by both of them. You can't give me 2 targets, Coach. I got to take this thing to the NFL. What the heck are you doing? Like, how are you able to say, okay, I get what they're going to do, Will Fuller, to stop you. Here's what we're going to do to still use you. Like, that's the chess match, isn't it?
Typically, bracket coverage ends up being a version of 2-man, but instead of those 2 safeties being deep half players that are just arbitrarily playing 22 to 25 yards down the field, 4 yards outside of the hashes, a lot of times one of those 2 ends up being like an 8-yard second element to bracket that receiver. So it's very, very rarely do you see just two man defenders at the line of scrimmage on one guy. It's
Calvin Johnson. That's the only time I've ever seen that is Megatron.
Yeah, and that gets exposed so fast because somebody else is getting a ridiculous one-on-one in the box.
Okay.
So that's just it's dumb. You can't even disguise it. You don't see that. No. So bracket typically is like some type of over-under man coverage, right? So it's somebody at the line of scrimmage, somebody 6 to 9 yards past beyond the line of scrimmage. So if that's the case, you got to use your meshes and your rubs and your shallow crosses, and you got to be able to create some, because it's tough to bracket from 8-9 yards if you immediately with that speed at 4.31 are running right down the line of the defensive line, or the heel line of the defensive line, and getting rubbed by another tight end body type. And then if you can get a runner to a guy like that, that's kind of like, oh, you want to play that game? I'm going to play this game.
I love it, man. Let's get to Pro Day Tuesday. George Holani is going to be there. You talked about some of your experiences with Pro Day. I mean, obviously this is an important thing for George. Just your thoughts, what they're going to go through, and George Holani. I know there's a couple other Boise State players too, but I just figured we'd focus on George Holani. We got to wrap this up in a couple of minutes, but tell the people who are watching this and will watch this kind of what to expect and what to hear about George Holani and his Pro Day on Tuesday.
Well, George Holani's, I think a lot of his value is going to be not just because he's a tremendous talent at running back. He's built like a Greek god, but he's a return man, and he's been a return man, in significant games at Boise State over his career. I think it's gonna be important for this. George Holani had a good combine. I watched it. I was right on the front row watching. I'm like, man, that was a good 40 time. I think it was in the 4.5-6 range. Does that sound about right? Right in the 4.
Yeah, it was good enough. Yeah,
it was good. Yep. His I think it was a 3 cone and the short shuttle were really good numbers. His bench numbers were some of the best, if I'm not mistaken, at the combine. But I think even he needs to go, because he's not this, Blake Corum where everybody's, he's going to be the first running back off the board. I think he needs to go out and do everything. He's got to go out and play, retest the 40, retest the bench, retest the 3 cone, and show another group, another audience that's more captive than at the combine, where there's so many different guys from so many different schools. Go out and earn the right to be drafted by somebody's going to fall in love with you. And then he's going to have, interviews. He's going to talk to running back coaches that'll be there at Pro Day. But I think that he's done so much on tape as a runner. He's done so much as a return man, but his value is going to be as a third down back because of what he's done as a protector. He is a tremendous pass protector. And I think that's where his bench number does really come into play, because you can combine the tape with that ability to create that bench, 20 some odd number at the bench. I think that George Holani ends up getting drafted, and he rightfully so should get drafted.
Who is the best pass pro collegiate back you ever had?
Stephon Taylor, not even close.
Stephon at Stanford, better than Ajayi, because I used to talk about Jay and pass pro.
Ajayi was physically so dang good because he had long levers. He could use his levers to keep guys off of him. Stephon was just an absolute technician, and he was only like 5'9", 209 pounds. He wasn't a huge guy, but he just had a way of creating so much explosiveness, and I mean, he would just stop any rusher in all of college football. At like wherever they met, they stopped.
Take me through it. Like, Grant Hendrickson shotgun, Jay's to his right, sees a blitz coming that you guys have worked on. There's obviously a code word. Is it the same typically for the line and the running back? Like, how does the quarterback tell the running back, okay, you're staying in. You were going to go out. Now I need to keep you in because I need to protect myself.
So pretty much all of most of college football, there's a slide element to the offensive line. So there's a man side, and typically the man side of the offensive line is where the running back is going to be dual reading 2 linebackers, like an inside backer out to the nickel Sam. And then the slide side of the line will typically be the center, left guard, left tackle. If the slide is going to the left, those 3 guys are responsible for any 3 between the 2 down linemen, and the linebacker on the left side. So the running back is going to dual read, typically inside out, depending on who's most dangerous. If he starts seeing the rotation of the safeties backing up the nickel Sam, then he knows he's got to get out there right now. And then the technique is you basically have to eat up that grass between you and that blitzing linebacker. Like, so chew up that grass, but do so in a very controlled manner where you don't lunge at the point of contact, where you're able to have, your force is created through your hips, and you use your hips and your hands and your hat to be able to stun the rusher. And then at the point that you strike the rusher, then you got to be able to get your hands fighting. You got to hand play and locate and realize that you're protecting, depending on the rush lane, you're protecting the cylinder behind the center. So yet, however that rusher came, he might get a little bit of advantage. He might get a little bit of an edge, but then you got to keep active feet and then keep using your hands to run him by the quarterback.
What have you seen out of pass pro from Genty when you had a chance to look at Boise State stuff?
What I've seen is elite, and it's strength, understanding of leverage. I think actually having shorter backs at times can be really beneficial in pass pro, because their center of gravity is so low, but then they also have the ability to cut. You can use a cut if you're getting bull rushed. I think Genty has a great feel for it.
What about this? If I say I don't want Barry Sanders pass protecting. And now, to be honest, I don't ever remember seeing Barry in pass pro. I don't. I think they always send him out.
Who's this quarterback?
Rodney Peete, Andre Ware, Eric Kramer, Scott Mitchell, Dave Craig.
Would you rather have one of those guys throw the football, or do you want to hand it to Barry?
but if I was like, dude, I don't want Genty in pass pro. I don't want a backer coming at him full speed and Genty just has to sit here and wait. Is it one of those things where
if he wants to be drafted high, then he's and I know the way he's wired based off of how he's responded to everything that's come his way over the last year. If he wants to play in the paid league, he's got to earn his keep as a pass protector.
Coaches don't look at it like that. Like you don't say, hey, we don't want our number one back out there if we think he's going to have to pass protect.
You do that. That's why you do specialize a third down pass protector on third and passing situations. And I think that was fairly commonplace with using a guy like George Halani on third down when both guys were healthy. You take a hit off.
So you think Halani's getting drafted? Sorry to interrupt, man, but
I think that if he goes out and does has a repeat, if not improved performance from his combine and does everything, it just shows he's the hungry dog, because the hungry dog's always what dog? He's the dangerous dog. And I think that he's going to show that. And he's going to find value because of his ability, not only as a running back, but as a pass protector and as a return man. That comes with a lot of value. And what I keep hearing is that this draft is really top heavy because of all the players that are coming back for their 6th and 7th year, and the NIL money's better than the 5th, 6th, or 7th round.
What do you think about that?
So I think that this is a good year to get drafted on the tail end. I think rounds 4 through 7, maybe 5-6 years ago, maybe George Halani, and not being the feature back at a group of 5 school, he does get drafted. But showing a body of work for the part of his career that he has, I think that in a draft like this, I think it's very realistic that if he has another really good performance at Pro Day like he did at Combine, I think he's going to get drafted.
Couple other questions we'll get to, Coach Sanford. I had a question I wanted to ask you. What was it? Where was it? I'm all over the place on Ball Talk. We got such good topics here, but I've talked to some coaches, and I'll just say Blake Anderson, the Utah State coach, right? Did I say his name correct?
Blake Anderson. Yep.
He's at Utah State. He was on Idaho Sports Talk with Prater and myself a couple months ago, but he said in recruiting now, the very first question that the kid asks is, how much can you pay me? And part of me is like, there are some people that when they apply for a job or when a job recruits them, that is a very important question. What's the salary? I don't know if I want your job yet based on what you're going to tell me on the salary. And I understand how coaches are real frustrated with this. I mean, selling the scholarship and the culture and the opportunity and the connections and everything that you guys sold these kids, you two, for so long. And I believe in all those things. I think the value of a 5-year or full ride scholarship, I'd be all in on that. But the world has changed. How frustrated, don't tell me any names, but I know you know everybody in the business, just these coaches, even guys like Brian Kelly at LSU, where it's even more so. How much, coach? How much you got? Because Mississippi State down in Starkville said $750,000. You can't come at me with LSU. We have all this cool stuff, but we only have $200,000 for you. I'm not going for that. Just like how most people in most lines of work are going to go to the job that's going to pay 3 times the amount of the other one. How frustrated are coaches in college football right now that you've talked to?
I think the guys that have been doing it for a long time, even in the SEC, where I think it's very commonplace that there was some under the table money being exchanged. I think it's not so much about the enticement of the NIL, like how much to give them right off the bat. The problem now, where the frustration's getting to an all-time high, is more what I heard Nick Saban talk about in Capitol Hill. He said that after his final game, I think it was what I heard was there were 32 players that wanted to have a meeting with Nick Saban, and they wanted to ask the 2 questions. Am I going to be starting next year? And how much are you going to be paying me? One of those 2 questions. And so now it's not just about getting the athlete to your school. Now for a place like Alabama that never had a problem financially under the table, getting athletes to their school. Now it's about retaining your roster, developing your roster, seeing that life kind of transforming development that leads to an NFL career. Now that it's gone out the window if you don't get what you want right away after your first year, your second year. And I think that's where the frustration at the top of college football is coming in. Now, if you're Boise State, you're Utah State, of course, you're going to be frustrated because there's players that you want to recruit that are getting big NIL deals elsewhere. Listen, it's always been the same. I mean, how often did a group of 5 school go in and out recruit top level Power 5 schools? So nothing's changed that way. It's about retaining your roster, and that's where the frustration is getting to, I think, an all-time high. And
I think you can still, and I'm sure you know this too, but you can find the right kids. Ashton Genty is the right kid. $300,000, a house for him and his roommates, give him a nice car to drive around, let people know he's Ashton Genty. He doesn't want to be rolling up in some lemon, right? I mean, he's a big deal in Boise. I mean, you guys have Joker in Denver. We have Genty in Boise. I mean, honestly, that's about the level of importance in this town, as you know, being here and seeing how this football program operates. So,
it's wild. If you think about the Denver Broncos right now, who's their star? The Denver Broncos don't have a Genty in Denver. No. There's nobody who
Javonte Williams.
They don't have one.
Mims kid was a rookie. Yeah, they don't have one. They've traded them all. I would say Simmons, and they got rid of him, the safety, right?
Yeah, they loved him. Best player on their team. And he still hasn't signed anywhere. But yeah, I just think about that, how fortunate Boise is to have a Genty, that was homegrown in a sense, and that stayed for the duration of his career. It's an awesome thing.
Can still find those guys. Before we get out of here, since I've known you, we've had some baseball talks, and I know you have a baseball background. You've always talked about the Giants. BJ tells that story of Reno when you were, asking about a baseball score at halftime of a game you were coaching, just like, hey, what's the score? I think the Giants ended up winning it all that year, the World Series.
That's correct. 2014, the third World Series title in 4 years.
Well, okay, where does your relationship with baseball, your love for baseball, where does that come from?
I played baseball as a kid, like everybody did, right? So it wasn't from playing baseball as a kid. Where it was really special is my dad, being a coach, you don't have a chance to spend a lot of time with your son, and there's not a lot of availability for time. But my dad, 2 different times that I remember, and nowadays they call these core memories. But my dad took me out of school on a Thursday. Didn't tell me, but it cleared it with the school. But took me out on a Thursday and a Friday, and then Saturday, Sunday, and took me recruiting with him. And so I was in the car, went up to Oakland.
Who'd you see?
Oakland Skyline.
Skyline? That's Gary Payton's high school.
Yeah, there's quite a few good ones. There were a couple good football players back then. I don't want to misspeak because the timeline might not add up. But so I'm sitting in the car in Oakland. My dad's in there talking to the coaches. I'm looking around like there's some stuff going on. I'm like, this is great. This could be
nice.
could end different, and my maybe mom wants it too. And then he surprised me and took me 2 different times. One time he took me to an Oakland A's game, and it was Bash Brothers era and Ricky Henderson. So he took me to the game where Ricky Henderson broke the all-time American League stolen base record, and I think it was Ty Cobb's record.
He was the AL. Yeah, it was Cobb's record.
It was Ty Cobb's record. I remember he ripped it out, raised it up, and I'm probably, 9, 10, 11 years old.
Yeah.
And then a couple years later, did it again. Took me to the Bay Area recruiting with him, and he showed me where he grew up in the Bay Area. Okay, showed me the house that he lived in. I didn't know any of this because we'd been so transient, we'd moved around, and so I got to see my dad, and these are his roots. This is where he grew up. This is what was important to him. He grew up a Giants fan and a Niners fan. So we recruited, and then he had some friendships and relationships with people at the 49ers. So we went to a 49ers OTA minicamp practice right after the school day, 2 to 4. And then we went to a Giants game at Candlestick Park. And that moment, I became a diehard San Francisco Giants fan for the rest of my life.
Will Clark, Barry Bonds. No, maybe not Bonds.
I think Matt Williams.
Rick Russell.
Oh yeah, there's some. One flap up. There's some.
Bobby Thompson.
Yep.
Bobby Thompson. Brett Butler. Was that your center fielder?
Brett Butler.
I know your whole damn lineup. Yeah.
JT Snow, who by the way is another Los Alamitos Griffin.
Is he really? He's Los Alamitos. Great defensive player.
Rob Nen, a Los Alamitos Griffin.
Rob Nen was a hell of a closer.
It got to the point where I started. This is insane that I'm telling you this, but I started scrapbooking. Like I would scrapbook and wake up in the morning, cut out the little blurb in the LA Times or the Orange County Register, standings, and I would get out my paste and glue it on.
You're a diehard baseball fan growing up.
And then it got real bad when I was recruiting, coaching college football. You go out and go spring recruiting. And a lot of guys a lot of my friends, they want to go out to, play the bar, the boom boom room, wherever at night, because there's nothing to do at night during spring recruiting. You can't see the athletes. You can only go to school. There's no home visits during the spring period. And so I would actually schedule my trip around going to Major League Baseball or minor league baseball games. And awesome. I brought my scorebooks. I would do the scorebook, have a pop or two. I always have some good stadium meat, a good glizzy, and just kind of live my best life. So I've been now, I think, to 27 of the Major League Baseball stadiums. So I have just a few left.
I used to, I'm wearing a Sonics shirt too. Love it for this, but I used to, and not every game was on TV with the Sonics when I was growing up. It was hard to imagine, but you relied on the radio for a lot of games. Mm-hmm. And I bought a basketball scorebook. I still have it, by the way. And I would keep basketball score with the Sonics, whether they're playing on TV or radio. And I always remember getting mad at the play-by-play guy, like, Calabro, how many fouls is that on Michael Cage? Is it his 3rd or his 4th foul? Like with the X-Man, is that his first technical or what? Anyway, but one time my older brother comes down the stairs and he's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm listening to the Sonics game, keeping score." And he's just like, "You freaking geek, man. Like, what are you doing? You're keeping score?" Like, and I remember my mom came down and kind of intervened, and my mom was like to my brother, she's like, "Hey, that's what he's gonna do, like forever. Like, that's what he's gonna do." You know, leave him alone. This is what he's doing here. And I remember like my mom had my back on that. And I never forgot that. I was 12 years old when that thing happened. I don't even think I've ever told that story. But yeah, you said you're keeping score. I was with you, man. You know, scrapbooks, coming up with my own games and my own leagues with dice and stuff like that. That was part of it. Growing up, being a sports fan in our era, Generation X type of thing, you had to be a lot more creative. Even fantasy football, you had to wake up in the morning, get the morning paper, and hand chart that stuff before you hop on the school bus and say, "Hey, you guys won, you lost." And that was literally me. I was the commissioner of our fantasy league, and I'm passing out standings on the bus when we drive to school. It was a lot of fun, man. But
it is. You know, it's so funny. You know, even myself, I've always loved all sports. Like even in the background, you might be able to see it on the reflection. I love soccer. You know, my grandfather from Denmark came over when he was 23 years old to the United States, and he passed on his love of Danish national team soccer. So I'm watching
beautiful game.
I'm watching the USA win another CONCACAF Nations League against Mexico. 2-0, which is 2-0.
CONCACAF Nations League.
I got it on right now. I don't have
That's
March Madness on. I've watched enough March Madness. You know, my team's out. So I got, funny. You know what? The USA is always going to be.
Who's your team other than Boise State? Is that your team in this tournament?
Yes,
okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I you know, what's funny is since I've been able to be a sports fan in the last year and some change, my wife laughs because we go to all the games. We go to Colorado Rapids MLS games. We go to, you know, tons of Rockies games. We go to, you know, Nuggets games. I haven't been to an Avs game yet. We went to like 5 Broncos games. But she always laughs because whoever sits next to me at the game has no idea, like, my background. And I'm doing color commentary in between every single play. And I'm breaking down coverage in a football game, in a basketball game. I'm talking about matchups.
You say that to your kids too? Like, hey, Gunner, that's what cover 2 man is. Gunner, the quarterback saw this, and that's why he threw it there. Okay.
Oh, yeah. And then I'm like Rain Man. Like, as the play's going on, I'm like, yeah, you can see the safeties start to rotate. Oh, that nickel's creeping. Oh, yeah, you can see it's coming. The blitz is coming. There it is. There, told you. You see that?
Anne-Marie, she sees all this happen, and she probably sees everybody around you in the section kind of like, who is this guy?
Oh, yeah. And it's great because I just finesse it and don't say a word about my background. They just think I'm a complete weirdo. It's the best.
All right, Coach. Ball Talk Spring Edition, Episode 2. I guess we'll get after it. Next week? We'll have more to talk about with spring ball and Boise State. But
hey, you are my boots on the ground until the spring game, and I still haven't heard from BJ. You know, he's he loves the fruits of my labor, but not always kind of giving me. So he's got to book some flights, man, or it gets the spring game so I can get some boots on the ground, man.
Book those flights, BJ. For everybody tuning in, we always appreciate the love on Ball Talk Spring Edition, Episode 2. We'll catch you next week. Spring Edition, Episode 3. Have a good one, Sandman.
Hey, you too, my man.